Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's My Money webinar. Today we'll be discussing digital banking with IPSE and one of our partner and three-time winner of Best British Bank, Starling. I'd like to introduce Charlotte from Starling Bank. Please, Charlotte, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you to IPSE for organising this. Welcome everybody. Today we've got Jess and Laura from the Doers, and we're going to be running through the benefits of digital banking. I think mainly focused for new freelancers, but I think we can all learn something from people, all the freelancers in Britain, and we can pass on our advice and tips. So we're just going to give an outline of what we'll be talking about. We're going to leave plenty of time for questions as well, so you can put those in the chat box, and we'll take those, most of them at the end, I think. So if we just go to the next slide. Yeah, great. So we're going to do a quick introduction. We're then going to talk about moving to digital banking and why Jess and Laura made that decision themselves for their own business as freelancers, and then different tools that you can see in the Starling app. We're going to talk about the fun topic of taxes and invoices, which are not very exciting but critically important, and then just around the pandemic and kind of digital banking, freelancing, how those all fit together. So let's get started with a short introduction. Great. So as you can see, I am an employee turned freelancer for Starling. I joined Starling in 2017 as an intern. I did history of art and English and came into banking because obviously that's a nice natural progression. But I ended up in the marketing team and did lots of blogs and writing and award entries, and I still do that today as a freelancer. So I've been freelance since January 2019. And yeah, I'll hand over to Jess and Laura.
So Laura and I started the Doers 2 years ago. We're a brand marketing consultancy with a collective of about 230 freelancers that we work with on various projects that we bring into play. I have been self-employed for now 4 years, and Laura for 2 and a bit years. I'll let her. And so we've learned a lot along the way and learned from our community of freelancers all the time, the struggles that they're having and tricks that they're finding that have helped, and we try and support them as best as we can as well.
Do you want to tell everyone how you guys know each other as well?
Yes, I was going to say, so Jess and I used to work together in an agency many moons ago now. Must be 8 years ago.
We never get this number right.
We never get it right. A long time ago. So we worked in agency together for a while and then went both off in different directions, different agencies, in-house stints. And then, Jess went freelance for about a year and came up one night with the idea of the Doers. At the time, I was on maternity leave with my second child, thinking about going back to work, but wanting a new challenge. So we kind of teamed up. We knew we worked well together from working together before, and launched the Doers.
And so how does the Doers work, just for anyone who hasn't come across it before?
So Laura and I will handle all of the strategy piece for the client. So we'll be the kind of main focus contact for the client. And then we put together a Starling marketing strategy and then look at the areas that we could bring our Doers into play. So our Doers are our freelancers, and they have expertise that we just don't have. So they will help us bring our strategy to life. So sometimes we only have 1 or 2 Doers. On some projects we have 7 or 8 Doers working on things, and it's just a really flexible working model. And it means that we get a lot of different expertise on one client focus as well, which is fantastic.
Great. And then the freelancers themselves benefit from those extra opportunities and that sense of community within the Doers collective.
Yeah, so in circumstances, we do a lot to support our freelancers and try and beat the loneliness that comes with freelancing. So we'll do monthly meetups, regular catch-ups. But obviously in the age of COVID, that's not been able to happen. And I think all of us have been suffering from Zoom fatigue. So we've just kind of bypassed having any more Zoom calls with everybody, but we try and make sure it's as less lonely as it can possibly be.
Yeah, we have all the doers we're actively working with. We're on Slack with them, and it's just really nice to have. You feel like you've got a team working with you, and you can bounce ideas around. You know, if you're a copywriter and you've been working on a brief and there's just one bit you're struggling with, we're always here to help on one of the projects we're working on, or any other project. Kind of stumbling blocks. Sometimes you just need a little bit of creativity and input from a fresh pair of eyes, so we're there to do that as well. And generally, we're kind of on the lookout for freelancers who just really know their stuff, like really experts in their specific marketing field. So yeah, Jess and I kind of looking at the general broader picture and then bringing in people who just really know their stuff and really good at what they do.
Great. So we'll share a bit more later on about how people can get involved if they think that that is a good fit for them. Yeah. So just a bit about Starling then. Starling is a completely digital bank, which means it doesn't have any branches. It's all on an app. And we also now have online banking for both businesses and personal customers. We also offer joint accounts and Euro accounts, and there is an US dollar account for business customers as well. It was founded by Anne Boden, meaning that it's the first British bank to be founded by a woman. And she set that up in 2014 and worked incredibly hard, still does, very, very hands-on CEO and founder. And she managed to get the banking license along with her very small team at that time in 2016, which is really significant because I think that that basically means that they gave their customers the safety net of that financial authority license. Like, it means that everyone's money is covered up to £85,000 by the FSCS protection. So before launching anything, they got the banking license. That was step number one. Then the app launched in 2017, and we have almost 2 million accounts now. And we have just announced that we are on track for profitability and are sort of in that already, really, which is fantastic. We've also had lots of very successful fundraising. So essentially, you can trust Starling. It's not just a sort of group of techie people who've said we're going to set up a bank, although it's very much a technology company. It is a fully regulated licensed bank. And Anne Boden has just shared her story in the book Banking on It, How I Disrupted an Industry, which was published by Penguin just a few weeks ago. So if you want to know more about her entrepreneurial journey, you can get a copy of that. So we'll just move on to the next slide now. Great. So Jess and Laura, why did you choose Starling and how did you come across it?
So I look after a lot of, well, most of our kind of admin, banking, invoicing for the doers. We were with a high street bank and I just spent far too much time trying to log in, trying to find my fob, swearing at my screen, constantly having to refresh and re-log in and being booted off. So after, I don't know, about 6 months or so of launching the business, I was like, this can't continue. I'm spending too much time trying to log in when I should be doing marketing work. And I actually came across the recommendation for Starling through Doing It for the Kids, which, if anyone hasn't heard of them, it's a big Facebook community group. All parents kind of freelancing, self-employed, working around their children. So I joined that right at the beginning of going freelance and found that to be a great support network. And regularly people are asking for good online banking recommendations for business accounts. So when I sort of kept seeing Starling being recommended, I was like, right, ready to switch. And it's honestly been one of the best business decisions we've made. The time I spend throwing at my computer has reduced dramatically. It syncs everything to I use QuickBooks to do all of our invoicing and VAT returns and taxes. I don't have to spend time finding my fob anymore, it just syncs automatically. And actually it's the transparency, being able to see exactly what we've got coming in on the app as soon as it does makes a huge difference to us. Especially the spaces, I talk about the spaces a lot. Using the app, you're able to create little spaces, like little pots of money that you can squirrel away savings. And when you're thinking about your taxes, I've got in the habit now, for every invoice that comes in, I put a little bit of it aside into a VAT pot or a tax pot. So instead of having this one big lump of money that's sitting in your account, which isn't actually all yours because some of it needs to go back out again, you can just see really clearly what you've got to play with and what's been put away for your taxes or savings, or you can set yourself a goal of saving up for a new computer, or to go on a writing retreat is something me and Jess keep wanting to save for, maybe next year. So yeah, it's been a fantastic support for us as we've been growing the business.
I think one of the things about it as well is that previously I didn't have a huge amount of access to our banking without having the same struggles that Laura was going through, and there was no point in us doubling up on that time. Whereas now I can see, as well as Laura, all of our accounts. It just flashes up on your phone, you can see it straight away. I know exactly where we are at the end of each month. So as Laura said, from a transparency perspective for two of us, it's fantastic.
Yeah. So just to explain, there's a couple of different business account options that we have. So there's a sole trader account for the majority of freelancers, I guess, unless you've chosen to set up a limited company, which I guess we could cover. If somebody wants to know a bit more about that, we can run through the differences at the question section. You can also set up a limited company account, which would be for people who are registered on Companies House. And then there is an option if you have multiple people of significant control, which is sort of jargony phrase, but that is the correct one to use, like Jess and Laura do, then you can both have the app and you will both get notifications every time money comes into the account, moves out of the account. You can just move the money between those spaces, which we were talking about, and we'll explain a bit more about that on the next slide. But just to reiterate, there's no hidden fees, like there's no monthly fees. You don't have to pay unless you choose an optional add-on for the business account. You can set it up within, like you can apply within minutes, and then it takes sometimes a few hours, sometimes a couple of days to verify it, open it, and then you can start using it straight away. So nice and easy. All you need is a smartphone and some internet connection and a piece of ID. So we just go to the next slide and we'll just cover a few more features in detail. So yeah, Laura or Jess, have you guys had any contact with customer support so far?
Yes, I have. It's been fantastic, actually. We had a payment that went missing coming in from the States, and it was great. I was able to just chat on Messenger. So for me, instead of having to kind of find an hour to sit down and kind of get on the phone and ring customer service from our previous bank, I was able to get the kids down into bed. I had an evening where I was on my own and I was chatting and waiting for a response as I was cooking my dinner, check in, I'm second in line, and then they sorted it for me right there and then, just over text message, really. Really responsive, dealt with my problem straight away, and most importantly, the money then appeared. So hooray, another invoice paid.
Great. So yeah, just to add to that a little bit, there's a couple of different ways you can contact customer service, and they are 24/7. We even have people on Christmas Day, so because it's your money, it matters. Like if something goes wrong, you've got to be able to contact people quickly and easily, and there's a number of ways you can do that. So the quickest and easiest way, I'd say, which is the one that Laura used, is live chat within the app. So that's just you have a little code and you go into the app and you type out your question or your problem, and then you'll have someone respond to you. You can also email or you can call. There's a number on the back of your card, and I think that's it. I mean, if there's something really like sort of promotion or sort of more like a product question, if you're wondering if there's going to be an event or if there's some kind of feature coming up or some kind of partnership, you can ask on social media. We also have a very highly reactive social media team. They know what's coming up or what they're able to say or things like that. So that's another way that you can get in touch. So we'll just ask about Marketplace a little bit, which is quite an exciting one for you guys, because one of your clients is Penfold, who provide flexible pensions for freelancers, self-employed, and are also in the Starling Marketplace, which means that if you're a Starling customer, you can go into the Marketplace, connect it up if you're already existing, or sign up, and then you'll be able to see your pension balance within your Starling app. So it's not sort of hidden away in the same way, it's just adding that extra layer of transparency. But yeah, tell me a little bit about Penfold and what you like about them and the Marketplace.
The great thing about Penfold is that we were actually buying into them ourselves before actually working with them. So we are a genuine customer as well as
as well as working with them.
Yeah. But the great thing is that it means that I can always see, I mean, I think it's my pension that's integrated on our business account, but I can always see what's going in and how it's performing, which some people love and some people hate doing that. But sometimes you just want to put that money away and just not think about it until you retire. But I quite like seeing the returns that I'm getting on it, and being able to do that all in one app is fantastic. So, you know, as soon as that integration came into place, it was just like, yes, fantastic, I can see it all here. And it was just really easy to set up and sync up together. So yeah, now we can access it anytime. Penfold, for anyone who doesn't know, are a pension provider, as Charlotte said, for the self-employed. Anyone can have a pension with them, but they just understand the self-employed community really, really well. They have lots of different types of funds, including a sustainable option and a Sharia compliant pension as well. So lots of different options, and just they take out all the jargon of pensions. I mean, I'm not the greatest person with money, and that's the biggest difference between Laura and I, is that Laura's very money minded, very finance orientated, and I'm definitely the spender out the two of us. I need to in almost a very dumbed down way when it comes to finances, and Penfold do that really, really well. And actually, it's kind of what I love about Starling as well. You talk in a language that I can understand. And if I can understand it, anyone can. So there's enough to deal with as a small business owner, and enough to contend with every day, that you just don't want complications coming into play. So any tools that allow for that to be a little bit easier,
make life simpler. All about making things simple. And the other great thing with Penfold is, as a freelancer, sometimes you'll have months that are really good and you're busy and can't keep on top of your workload, and other months it's really quiet. So you can adjust what you're putting into your pension. So if you've had a really good few months and you're thinking, I've got a bit of extra cash I want to put away for the future, you can. But equally, if you're having a few quiet months, especially, you know, with COVID and everything that's been happening, if your money is a bit low, you can reduce down your month what you put in. It's really flexible.
Yeah. So I use Pension Bee for my own pension, and I think, like many freelancers, I took longer than I probably should have to actually set it up, because you just have that fear and you're just thinking like, I can't lock that money away, but because you don't know when you're going to need it. And what I like about the marketplace integration is that, in the same way with Spaces, that you've got that savings money, but it's there and you can see it building up. It kind of gives you this satisfaction that you're like sort of saving for your future self, and just having that balance within Starling gives me the same feeling for my pension. It doesn't feel like I'm kind of putting my money in a prison. It feels like I'm doing something good and I will like benefit from it in the future. Yeah.
100%,
So some of the other features that we've got are the instant payment alerts, which we've already mentioned. I think the only other thing to say is that if you've got an upcoming direct debit or standing order, that will send you a notification the day before, which I find really helpful. And if for whatever reason you don't have enough money to cover that payment, you again will get a notification, so you can move money over from a Space or from another account. And just, we don't want you guys, we basically want to avoid the customer having something bounce, because that can have it's just not on, it's sort of more admin, more faff, and it's not great for your credit score sometimes. So that notification could be a really good prompt. There are also automatic categories, so everything can be categorized and you can move the category if it's not quite right. So for example, I mean, this is more on the personal side, but if you've bought something and then it actually wasn't, like it's a gift, you can move that from shopping into gift. On the business side, it all matches with HMRC to try and make your tax returns a bit simpler. And we also prompt you to take a photo of a receipt when you've done a transaction, so that you can keep them all organised. Do you guys do that, or do you do that on QuickBooks?
We do it on QuickBooks, but we take photos of our receipts, and which is really helpful. It means I don't have to chase Jess constantly for receipts. She sends them as soon as she takes the photo. Much more useful.
But now I know it's nice and easy to do, either on QuickBooks or on Starling. We know that the option's there.
Yeah, and that's the best thing, is that if you do it as you go along, it gets really overwhelming if you leave a stack of receipts and you have to sit and go through them all, take photos, upload them. Whereas if you do it as you go along, it makes that process so much smoother.
Totally. So Spaces, I think we've already talked about those a lot, but just to be clear, it's essentially, Some accountants will recommend that you open multiple business accounts or multiple accounts so that you can move your tax and insurance like money into a separate space. And essentially it just takes out that step, because you can organize these pots of money within your bank account, but separate, and they can be named. You can set a target, you can move them back and forth instantly, there's no delay, and it does come up on your bank transaction receipt, like your feed. But if you just explain to your accountant, or if you're doing it yourself and you know what that is, then it's very simple, and it shouldn't mess up your balance sheet. It's just designed to make things simpler for you.
Yeah, I was going to say, in QuickBooks, yeah, you can just tick a box and it just accepts what it is and knows that you've got a pot here, but your overall balance is still reflective of everything you've got in all your spaces.
Which
it's
again,
one of the best tools.
Sorry, Laura, what were you saying?
I was going to say, it is one of the best tools, I think, just being able to have that overall clarity, and it gives you a little reward, a little like, ta-da, when you reach your target and you put all the money away in your space. And yeah, again, once I do it for VAT and tax, and when I get ready to make that payment, it's instant. I just move it back into the main pot and then out it goes to HMRC. Really, really, really useful.
Yeah,
I like the space that we have. So that's for all the fun money when we do things like training and away days and things like that. So I like keeping tabs on that one. It gets me very excited.
That's great. Yeah, I think just from a psychological perspective, it's quite good, again, on tax, like just knowing that when you get that invoice paid, not all of that money is your earnings. Like, you just need to remember that, and just putting it away straight away is what I try and do, and it is really helpful, and just gives you that safety and like peace of mind that you're not gonna not have enough when it comes down round to whenever your taxes are due.
Just
So
again,
let's
it's
go
no hidden surprises. If you've done that, when your payments are coming in and going out, it's just, you don't suddenly get a, oh gosh, I hadn't thought of this.
Yeah.
All the surprises taken away.
So if we just go on to the next slide, yeah, perfect. So a bit more on tax. So as you guys have already mentioned, you use QuickBooks for your online accounting, and Starling has an integration with QuickBooks, meaning that it's all instant. You don't have to manually update it. You don't have to transfer anything across. It all just happens seamlessly. We've got a similar integration with Xero, Free Agent, and PayStream. And we also have our own toolkit, which just means that everything is all in one place. That costs £7 a month. And that's what I use personally for my own invoices and tax. It's just a very simple bookkeeping tool. But there's just lots of options out there. And if you are going to open a business account with Starling and you don't have an online accounting package first, I would recommend using one of those 5 options that we've listed, just because it will make it incredibly seamless when it comes to the sort of connecting the two. Yeah. But why did you guys choose QuickBooks, and kind of what do you like best about it?
And so most of them do like a little free trial, so you can try them all out and see what suits you. I was using QuickBooks when I had a short kind of couple of months stint as a freelancer, and just found, for me, the interface and all the processes that you get set up was really, really simple and straightforward. So then when we formed the Doers and became a limited company, I just updated from the kind of sole trader QuickBooks to the limited company. Yeah, I think I just find the interface really simple and clear and easy to follow. It does have a few sneaky, sometimes it tries to auto categorize something for me, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, that's not for that, come back, change it. But other than that, I found it really seamless, especially since linking to Starling, and I don't have to constantly update my transaction list 100 times a day. It means we can put receipts in. We do our invoicing all through QuickBooks. That all matches up. I put through all of the invoices we get from our doers, all our freelancers. I kind of log into QuickBooks. So again, once we pay out through Starling, it all syncs up and matches, and I don't have to spend extra time matching payments up to invoices and things like that.
Great.
When I was freelance before we started the Doers, I didn't use any of these programs. I just kind of cobbled through it in whatever way I could myself, and that was such a mistake, because when it came to doing my tax returns, it was just an absolute nightmare. So I strongly recommend that if anyone is starting out as someone who is self-employed or a freelancer, just invest into these programs, because it will just take out so much stress when it comes to doing tax returns, which are not fun.
What are your thoughts on doing your tax returns yourself or using an accountant? What would you say for that question?
When you're working for yourself, you have to be really conscious of your time. And when it comes to doing your tax return, unless you're very financially minded, it's not the most intuitive thing to do. I had to do a lot of Googling to work out what everything meant and where I had to put things in and what I had to track. And it ended up eating into 2-3 days of my time, which is obviously time that I could have been working on a client and earning money. So I think from a cost perspective, it is just far more cost efficient to take on an accountant, because they're not expensive. I mean, I think our accountant is very, very reasonable, and just supports all of it.
It's worth asking around. Like, again, a lot of these kind of online communities, which might be specific to your industry and what you do, if you ask people on there, that there's always going to be a recommendation of someone who's well priced, really understands what you do, and can kind of pull that all together for you. Yeah, like Jess, it's so much quicker than you could do it yourself, and it is really worth it. Just not only just your time that you could be spending on other things, but just the worry that you have got it right and checking everything. And the last thing you want is then to find out that something hasn't been put through correctly, and then you owe more than you thought, or anything like that. I think it just takes a lot of weight off your shoulders.
And also knowing which expenses that you can claim for. You know, again, I was relying on Google to tell me, whereas having an accountant, they just know that, you know, use of home and your travel expenses and all of the things that you can include, you just know up front. So it does just take that stress away.
And I think that expense point could end up saving you what you would spend on your accountants anyway. So it kind of comes to the same thing in a way. And then you save lots of time and stress, and you're not, I mean, the rules are changing all the time as well. I think that's what I really like about using my accountant. And it's just, I just ask my dad, because he's self-employed as well, like, which accountant do you use? And he's made me an introduction. It's just a local one in St Andrews. I'd say that probably outside of London tends to be cheaper, which is, again, like now with COVID, it's very easy to have phone calls or video calls if you need to with your accountant. Just try and get a personal recommendation and sort of use it in combination with one of these pieces of software, because that will save even more time as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because we're set up as a limited company, and we have to deal with VAT as well each quarter. So it's quite complicated. But even then, our accountant doesn't cost that much, and we don't. The amount of time I spend talking to her or answering her queries is really quite minimal. After that initial kind of month of setting up and finding our feet, it really doesn't take that much of my time at all now, which is really, really helpful.
Yeah, great. And for any limited companies that are registered for VAT and they use the toolkit, there's a tool in there that you can submit it yourself, like through the Making Tax Digital. And it also gives you an estimate amount of tax or VAT that you're going to do by running through your accounts, which is really useful. I think lots of them do that as well. But
I keep an eye on that, and that's kind of how I set my space for each quarter. I set our back side and keep an eye on the tracking that they do. It's really helpful.
Yeah. So one last question just before we move on to the next slide. What would your advice be for someone making their first invoice, and if they're not using one of these pieces of software, what do you need to absolutely include? What should be top of the list?
Number one thing that I always say, we get a lot of freelancers invoice us, and one of the things we pride ourselves on at the Doers is paying our freelancers as quickly as we possibly can. So normally on the day they invoice us, if not, then within the same week. There's no date on the invoice. So when you're obviously working with a client, you should kind of set out your payment terms. So do you want to be paid within a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever you've agreed with them? And then when you invoice them, put the date of when that invoice is due, because otherwise you sent an invoice out, I could take a year to pay that if there's no due date, and you can't argue it because you haven't put a payment term on it. It still amazes me how many freelancers send us invoices with no due date on. So that is my number one thing. Set your payment terms up front when you agree your scope of work. Have a contract in place. We have contracts in place with all of our freelancers, which covers both of us in terms of what we're paying them, what we're expecting them to deliver, when we're expecting them to deliver it by. So that makes sure they're really clear on what they're delivering, and we know what to expect, so we can then manage our clients. And in that is always agreed payment terms. What would happen, and also what would happen if the payment is late. I think that's one of the number one things we find with freelancers is that's chasing late invoices. It doesn't just impact on your financial situation and maybe being able to pay your rent or your bills or whatever that might be. It's a massive stress and burden for you to constantly chasing up, worrying about when is it going to get paid. So if you're really clear on when your invoice is due and when you're expecting to be paid, that will make a massive difference. I think other than that, Other than that, it's kind of standard, addresses of who you're invoicing as well as your own, breakdown of what the fees, what you've done in the scope of work for the project, or the retainer fee, whatever that might be, putting on your registered company number if you have one, that sort of thing. But yeah, date, number one thing is always put a due by date.
Great. Let's just go to the next slide. So the dreaded pandemic and freelancing. What has your experience been like, and how have you found and sort of supported your own freelancers through this year?
We've been quite lucky, and I always have to touch wood whenever I say this because it could turn at any point, but we haven't really seen a big impact on our work from the pandemic. So at the very beginning, we had a good few weeks where clients were starting to panic about spends and what's going to happen, and pulled back on how much they were spending with us, which then in turn sent us into a bit of a panic. But actually, we had done quite a lot of legwork before everything had kicked off, so the phone started ringing pretty quickly afterwards, and we were absolutely fine. So we've been quite fortunate, and we've taken on quite a few big projects that have allowed us to give work to a lot of our freelancers as well, which has been actually really rewarding. I'm sure Laura would agree with me. That have been quite troublesome months. We've actually been able to offer quite a lot of work out, and actually more so than we have been able to in previous years. So it hasn't massively impacted us. Right at the beginning, we did furlough ourselves for a few weeks. I had a personal death in my family, so I needed some time out to deal with that. And Laura did the same for herself. That was really, really easy to do, which we actually set up through our accountant. Yeah. We haven't needed any financial support from the government aside from that furloughing period, but a lot of our freelancers have. Some have had it, some haven't. It's been a really kind of mixed bag.
Very hit and miss, yeah.
So just for the furloughing scheme, I guess that will play into when we talk about limited company versus sole trader. Previously, that would never be something that would have crossed our radar of like what that could eventually mean. But I guess now it is definitely something to think about, isn't it? Because if you're a limited company, you can furlough yourself. If you're a sole trader, you're more going to be relying on the self-employed grants. So there's quite different support when it comes to the coronavirus and people who are self-employed, depending on how they've set themselves up. But just on government support, so Starling is an accredited coronavirus business interruption loan scheme and bounce back loan scheme provider. Like all the big banks, we've done the same regulations, same tests, really, really good technology. And I've interviewed a lot of people who've received those loans, and they've been, on the most part, very pleased with how quickly it's come through. We are still taking new registrations, so you basically register your interest on the website, and then we will invite you to apply. You can't just apply yourself, so it's just the process that we've got of going through. There's just so many people, but the team is working as hard as they can to get those loans to people, and we're also doing top-ups for those who've already had a loan and have now got to the end, and obviously this is going longer than anybody would have expected. I mean, the other tools that we offer just for kind of support, again, we've talked about Spaces a lot, but that is, again, just a design to keep you saving and just get into that habit if you can, so that you've got that rainy day fund for when it matters most. And then coming back to the marketplace again, we've got a marketplace partner called Nimbler who offer invoice insurance. And that is something that especially, well, it's just a question of late payments. I think that if you don't have an established relationship with your client, it's probably worth having a contract regardless of what your relationship is like, because it just gives you clarity for both sides and gives you that cover. Invoice insurance isn't that expensive, and if you are kind of nervous, or if it's a huge project where if they paid you late, or if heaven forbid they didn't pay you, that would be literally catastrophic, then I think it probably is worth looking into invoice insurance. Nimbler can help with that. And the other thing that is useful is Dingy, which does freelance insurance for public liability and business equipment. So if you're kind of completely dependent on your folks like camera or laptop or whatever it is, they can offer like really flexible, very affordable insurance.
And on pandemic world, we had a few months pre-pandemic that were very, very quiet. And that was because we had a lot of projects that were put on hold because they had products that were produced in China. China was obviously the first hit, so their factories were shut down very early on. So we lost out on a couple of big projects that came in at that point. And instead of sitting there kind of twiddling our thumbs waiting for the work to come in, we really used that time to get our finances in order, get any kind of creative plans in place for our own business, get blog content done, social content done,
fine-tuned our website copy, like looked at how we were talking about ourselves and what we were offering, and made sure that was really slick. So yeah, it's always, you will have busy periods and quiet periods, and it is making the most as best you can of those quiet periods, trying not to panic and thinking, well, what can I do to improve my business now? Can I look at my website? Can I do a little bit of PR for myself? Those sorts of things. So if you do have a quiet time, you can set yourself in good stead for when things pick up again.
Yeah. Where did you guys get your first clients from?
So I had started working with a lot of our kind of first wave of clients pre-starting the Doers.
Yeah, when you were freelance. Yeah,
I used to work for an American furniture retailer called West Elm, where I was there for 5 years as marketing director. And when I built lots of connections during my time with a lot of kind of small company businesses. And when I went freelance, I reached out to all of them, let them know that I was working solo now, and built up my little black book from there. So it was just a case of using my network as much as I possibly could.
Yeah, well, that's kind of continued really. Most of our work so far has come from people we've worked with before, old clients, and recommendations, word of mouth recommendations. So yeah, touch wood, we haven't had to do a big kind of push so far, big marketing push of ourselves, but yeah, word of mouth has been the main income.
Yeah, I found the same. So any work that I do for companies outside of Starling, normally it's through a connection of Starling that I've come across that person. And I think just making it known and obvious that you are freelance and unavailable, and just putting it in, your email footer, your name, number, freelance, whatever your profession is. LinkedIn can be useful, and just keep sharing and keep spreading that you're there. And
I think if you sit down and wrote down a list of people you've worked with before, or you've come across in various different ways, and actually told them what you do, and really distill that into, this is what I'm really good at, and this is what excites me, this is the kind of work I want to be doing. If you've got your little kind of elevator pitch, then you never know who you already know who can link you to a new job, new client. So yeah,
I've always
exercise quite early on.
Yeah, Twitter's been amazing for us for finding or just connecting to new groups of people. I've always been a big advocate for Twitter, actually more so than LinkedIn. I find LinkedIn very clunky to use, but Twitter, I think particularly for freelance and self-employed, there's a really strong community on there. So we do actively use that to meet new people, find new doers, just put word out there as to what we do and who we are.
Yeah,
great. And so let's come on to that. How would somebody get involved with the Doers, and if they think that is going to be something for them, you can be a good match for each other?
Go to our website. So we have it's www.thedoers.co.uk, and we have a join us section at the top. So that's the place to go. There'll be a form that will kind of encourage you to tell us a little bit about you, what you're really good at, what kind of work you enjoy doing, and then we use that to kind of match up to any of the projects we're working on.
Yeah, I would say most crucially is going in on exactly what you do. We have a lot of freelancers approach us and they say, oh, well, I do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and much easier for us to work with someone if we know that they are honed in on a particular skill.
What they're really good at, yeah.
For a graphic designer, but they can do some social media content as well. That's great to know, but let's focus on the graphic designers. That's the key element. If they're a copywriter, then what do they write most about? We really want to be in what they do, and it makes our lives easier when we try and matchmake them with a project that we have in hand.
And equally, that would go for when you're publicising yourself or doing your own website for a freelancer, or doing your Twitter bio, whatever. Just the more specific, the better. and kind of look at what you're good at, look at what you really love doing, and see something kind of in between there. Because I think niches actually can be very helpful. You might think you're limiting yourself, but actually you can kind of carve out a place where someone will go, oh, I need this, and then they'll go, oh, that person.
Yeah, I was going to say the best websites, you just land on that homepage and you know exactly what they do and what they're really good at. And yes, they might also do some other things, but that might be on a separate page that you can drill, you know, find out a bit more. But it's like really own your craft and really push what you're really, really good at.
Yeah, great. So should we jump into the question on limited company versus sole trader? Because that is the thing that I found kind of one of the most stressful things when I decided to go freelance, because it's just such a minefield and you've got no idea, and sort of pros and cons to each of them. But in the end, I decided to go sole trader. You guys have obviously set up as a limited company. So do you guys want to go first and tell some people about the benefits of that and why you made that decision?
Yes, well, we made that, well, the two of us to start with. So we were looking at the options. We knew we wanted to be employees. So we pay ourselves a monthly salary, which mostly stays the same. And then that enables us, when we've kind of had really good months and we've got a bit more in the bank, we can pay ourselves a dividend, which has tax implications. I'm not an absolute expert on the setup of a limited company and the differences, but we went through a recommendation of someone we had within our network and went and spoke to an accountant about the best way for us to get set up, and have like a quarterly check-in to make sure that the setup we've got is actually working for us and giving us the best money really for kind of the energy that we're putting into the business.
Jess, were you a sole trader before you started the Doers?
Yeah, but again, I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. This was based on a few conversations I'd had with people that I met online. It was definitely the best setup for me when I was working on my own, based on what I was earning at the time and just the logistics of it. And also because I had the concept of the Doers in the back of my head, I knew that that's where it was going to go to. So I didn't want to make anything too complicated. And so setting up as a sole trader did make sense at that.
So the reason that I decided to be sole trader was because I didn't think that I'd be earning enough to kind of justify doing more expensive accounts and more complicated accounts, which is what happens with limited company. But then again, the accountants know what they're doing, but it does cost more if you have a limited company. I also just thought that it would be good to start sole trader and you can always move to limited company. It's much more complicated to go limited company to sole trader. And what were the other reasons? I think I just thought it was all round more simple, and again, you don't have to have a business account if you're a sole trader. Lots of people will use personal accounts, but with what I'd recommend is that you definitely have separate accounts if you're not going to set up a specific business account. And I think one of the reasons a lot of people don't do that is because you'll get charged for business accounts, which is where Starling comes in, because you don't have any fees, which is nice. And it's very easy to flip between your personal account and your sole trader account or your business account or whatever in the app. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that kind of factors into that decision. There's lots of advice online, and there's we've got a business guide about it on the Starling website. But I think just ask around a little bit, try and find out the different tax implications, try and know roughly what you're going to be earning, and then just go from there.
It is fundamentally down to what you earn. So that it can be more tax efficient sometimes to set up as a limited company director. So it's just knowing what those thresholds are and whether or not you're hitting them.
Yeah. Great. So this is a question from someone who already has a personal Starling account wanting to apply for a business one. So that can be even easier and quicker to apply because we've already got some information and you've already done your ID verification. In terms of fast tracking, I'm not entirely sure, but my mum recently set up a sole trader account with Starling and it was opened and verified literally within minutes. So, and she was already a personal account holder. So I think that maybe it is quicker if you've already got a personal account. You do need to have a personal account to get a sole trader account. And it just depends on how busy we are. And it just is, with the loans, basically Starling was incredibly busy, so the wait time on business accounts being opened was slightly longer than people might have expected from previously, but it's just a question of getting through them and getting as many customers onboarded as we can. Next one is it easy to transfer to a Starling? I can't see that, it's not scrolling down. Can you guys read that one?
I can't see any questions on mine. They're not coming up.
Okay. My mouse seems to have frozen as well. That's good. I think that's about transferring a business account to Starling. So I guess that would be about CAS, which is the current account switching scheme. Did you guys switch it over completely? Did you like close your old one?
Yeah, we switched over. It was great. It was all done pretty quickly, and all of our direct debits switched across. We didn't have any missing payments or anything go wrong. It was brilliant.
Yeah, great. I think I did that for my personal account, but I didn't have a business account with any other bank before I went to Starling. But again, I just helped my mum with this. And it's very easy. So once you're verified and set up and opened, you press the little plus button. There's a little plus green button, and then it says move it all to Starling. And then that starts the process, and it's completely guaranteed within 7 days. Your pays, your direct debit, your balance, everything will be moved over. You literally don't have to do anything other than clicking that button, and then all the rest is done by your old bank and Starling. So that's nice and simple.
It's quite a good opportunity to do a bit of an audit of your direct debits as well when you make that switch. Just making sure you are making use of all of the direct debits you have set up and they are services you're still actively using. So I just recommend that people do that if they are doing the switch over.
Great. Have you guys got the questions up on your screen, or is it only me who can see them?
I've got them up on my screen, but there's nothing that's coming through that I can see. So I don't know if it's just coming up on your screen.
I can only see.
Hey Charlotte, it's Kate here. I can see all the questions. I can read them out to you. I do apologize if there's any technical problem in here. So let's see. Wade is saying that QB has to be redone every 3 months. So your info is incorrect. Can we clarify that?
What was the question?
Which one's every 3 months?
The VAT, is that?
I'm not sure. He said QB.
Oh, QuickBook.
Wait, can you clarify that?
Yes, I can clarify that. So this is the permissions that just has to happen as part of data protection. So if you have signed up to a marketplace partner, every 3 months, you just have to confirm that you are still happy for that data exchange to happen. And yeah, I guess that is a little bit of an annoying kind of admin thing, but it's just to make sure that you're happy with your data being shared, because we wouldn't ever want to be sharing something outside of Starling that you hadn't realized or like you no longer wanted. So it's just a kind of approve, done. Yeah, and that happens every 3 months.
Great, thanks. Another one from Yasmina. She is asking if there are any other fees, monthly fees, in terms of paying extra for money in or any withdrawals.
Nope. No money in, no withdrawals. There's £300 ATM limit each day. And then when we are allowed to travel, you can also use your Starling card abroad and not get charged any extra fees, unless the ATM itself has a fee, which would charge every bank. But Starling doesn't charge you anything else for using your card abroad. The only fees are really for the optional packages. So the toolkit costs £7 a month. We've also got a payments package, which is launching soon for kind of larger limited companies. That will cost £10 a month. But no, other than that, it's all very transparent, very nice and cost effective.
Yeah, no surprises.
Adi is asking if any currency accounts come with cards for travelers.
Okay, so there's international payments. I guess that is those are fees that would always be outlined, but that's sort of like an extra thing that you can go and do. There are international payments for both personal accounts and business accounts. And then if you have a kind of business that's operating with the US and or Europe, and you think you need to be able to transfer money all the time, or like hold euros or hold dollars, then it's worth getting that extra business account, and that costs £5 per month. And the Euro account costs £2 per month, I think. Pretty sure that's right. But yeah, there's lots of different currencies, very simple. We'll tell you the exchange rate beforehand. You can confirm it, you can check that you're happy with it. There's 0.4%. There's the charge, I think, that just covers our costs. But normally it's cheaper than any other kind of competitor on the market, which is good.
Lovely. Russell is asking, what credit cards do you offer for business and personal accounts?
So there aren't any credit cards, but we do offer overdrafts and loans. And there's more information about both of those on the website. So sort of standard APR. And again, everything will be agreed, transparent. You can move your overdraft up and down if you're a personal account customer. And if you're a business account customer, I think you usually have to apply through the website, so you can send a message. They will then, the lending team will get in contact with you, see if you're eligible, and then sort it out.
Lovely. Ash is asking, will the toolkit help with monitoring rental income from different properties?
Ooh. I think it kind of helps with any income. I'm definitely not an expert on that, but again, there's a free trial that you can do. So it might be worth just signing up and connecting it, seeing how you go. And then you can always, if it's not the right tool for you, you can always cancel that trial before it starts to charge you. Afraid I don't know on rental properties.
I guess it would let you categorise each different payment. So
yeah,
you can keep track of where they come from and kind of have an overview of like a whole year's worth from one particular property if you categorise it properly.
Mm-hmm.
There was another question here, if there is any sort of online tryout sort of system or some toolkit or demo people can try before, you know, signing up.
For the Starling account, do you think?
Yes, I think that's what they mean. If there's any demo to sort of get them through the features.
Okay, so the best way to do that would just be to go to the website and have a little browse through, because there's lots of different screenshots of what the app looks like and how things work. In terms of an actual trial that you can try out yourself, that isn't something that we can offer because it is a fully regulated bank account. So for you to get the app and download and apply for an account, you have to go through that process. You can't just do a sort of dummy version. But the website has plenty of information on it, and we have a couple of YouTube videos which shows a how-to of kind of how to do various different things in the app, so that might also be something that's worth looking at. The account is just Starling Bank on YouTube.
That's great. Thank you very much. These are all the questions I can see. It was very lovely webinar, very informative. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. Thank you, Charlotte and Jess and Laura, for being with us here today, and see you soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.